Hi, and welcome back. And today we're looking at the same verses we looked at last week, but in a different way. So once again, this is Philippians 2, verses 5 through 7, which says, "Among all of you have the same kind of thinking which was in Christ Jesus, who, having the status of God, though he did not consider being equal to God something to exploit, but instead removed all prestige from himself, assuming the status of a slave. He took on the likeness of humanity and appeared in the form of a man." There is a word in verse 7 that has caused all kinds of debates and built entire theologies, and that is the word keno. Keno has the literal meaning of to make empty. The reflexive pronoun before it means that the subject of the verb is also the object. In other words, whatever is doing the action is doing it to itself. And this is why you will find many translations saying something like, "He emptied himself." And that has led many to wonder, well, what did Christ empty himself of? And this has led to great speculation among scholars. Does this verse mean that Jesus had to become something less than fully God? And if he did, which attributes or abilities did Jesus set aside? Yet all of that speculation is built on a faulty foundation. It's important to note that there is no mention in Philippians of a loss of divine attributes. Instead, the focus that Paul has is on the change in Jesus' morphe. And if you remember last week's discussion, morphe is about the essence or nature of a thing. In verse 6 and 7, Jesus goes from having the morphe, the essence of God, to the morphe, the essence of a slave. So what does that exactly mean? Well, there are two essential keys to unlocking what Paul is trying to illustrate. First, an important bit of historical context that we need to know is that the city of Philippi would have been an honor-shame culture. And that means that having the most important thing to a person is to have the most honor, right? Titles and social status was everything in this city. The other key is the verses that come before. In Philippians 2, 1 through 4, Paul urges the church there to be united. He specifically challenges them to not seek to raise their own status or to seek vainglory. In fact, he urges that they should treat each other as if they have higher social positions than themselves. This leads up to verse 5, which acts like a bridge. Instead of all this self-serving ambition, Paul says that they should have the same mindset that Christ had. And what was that? What did Christ do? Well, first, we need to remember that he had the ultimate social status, right? Because his status was literally God. There is no greater social position you can have than that. And also remember that this was during Rome, where there were cults dedicated to deifying the emperor. Yet Christ didn't look to exploit his status for any kind of selfish gain. In fact, he did the complete opposite. He set aside the highest status to take on the lowest status, that of a slave. Paul isn't trying to make a theological point to explain how a divine being can fit into a baby. He is making a sociological point, saying that the way we should think when it comes to class, social status, prestige, rank, or whatever is the same as Jesus. A being who created all things, who came into his own creation and allowed himself to receive the greatest humiliation, death by crucifixion. This incredible act of humility stands as the example par excellence of how one should live. This should not lead to followers of Christ feeling despair over what seems like an impossible task. Instead, it should teach those who call Christ Lord to see his incredible love for his creation. It should amplify our appreciation for Christ's sacrifice when we remember that he chose to empty himself while we were still sinners. Thanks again for listening. If you'd like to subscribe to the podcast, the link is down below. If you'd like to read this in a blog form, you can also find that link down below. Please like and subscribe and share this if this has been a blessing to you, and I'll see you next week.